I wasn't supposed to open the letter. I knew the kind of poison that came in envelopes like that. But the black wax seal, embossed with the Hawthorne crest, called to something stupid in me. That small part that still craved approval. Still wondered if they'd ever see me as something more than the girl who chose hotels over hedge funds. I peeled it open with a steak knife, not gently. The card inside was thick, laced with silver thread and ego. You are cordially invited to the annual Hawthorne Family Legacy Gala, hosted this year at the Carradine Grand in Monterey. Dress formal. Mind appearances. I read it 3 times before I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like a joke. A sick, glittery reminder of everything I used to want. I'm Aria Hawthorne. Or I used to be. These days I go by Aria Vale. A name I carved out of the ashes after they disowned me. 15 years ago, I was the family disgrace. The failure who turned down an internship at my father's investment firm to study hotel management. They called it, throwing my life away to full towels. My uncle Damon gave a speech at that year's Christmas dinner comparing me to a broken asset. My mother cried like someone had died. I guess to her I had. I stared at the letter, wondering what the angle was. The Hawthorns didn't do reconciliation. They did image. Prestige. Controlled narratives. And I'd been scrubbed from all of them. I almost threw it away. Almost. Then my phone buzzed. Serena. Of course. My cousin, the family's golden mouthpiece, Aria. She chirped like we'd been brunching weekly for years. So glad you got the invite. I did, I said coolly. Took me a second to recognize the tone. Almost sounded human. She fake laughed. Listen, the venue is extremely exclusive this year. The Carradine's not like those little boutique places you run. My jaw clenched. She didn't know. Of course she didn't. I'll keep that in mind, I said. Who picked the venue? Daddy let me handle it, she bragged. Took some serious persuasion to get the Carradine. It's the top hotel in the region. I bit my cheek hard enough to taste blood. The Carradine was mine. My flagship. She didn't know she'd booked her precious gala at a resort I designed, built, and launched from the ground up. Didn't know the Vale Group she'd been so eager to impress was owned, operated, and personally managed by the same embarrassment she helped exile. She kept talking, smug and oblivious. We really wanted this year to reflect our family's standards. You know what I mean? I did. She meant I didn't belong, again. The words didn't even sting anymore. They just echoed. I hung up without a goodbye, staring out from the 46th floor of the Vale Group's LA headquarters. Sunlight bounced off mirror towers, making the city look molten and unreal. Below me, people moved like ants. I used to be one of them. No one ever tells you how loud silence can be after years of being underestimated. I could have ignored the whole thing. Let them have their glittering lie. But something cracked open in me that day. Not out of spite, but clarity. They'd written me out of the story. So I'd write myself back in, as the twist they never saw coming. 15 years earlier, I was 21, broke, and stubborn enough to believe in dreams. I took my diploma and a $2,000 loan from a roommate's cousin and bought a crumbling roadside motel in a town nobody could pronounce. No air conditioning, no hot water. But it had bones. And it was mine. I cleaned rooms until 3 a.m. and painted walls until sunrise. I studied luxury hospitality while scrubbing mildew out of tile grout. I taught myself design, branding, negotiation, all while my family sent me articles about real jobs. When I couldn't afford a marketing agency, I learned code. Built the site myself. By year 2, the motel was turning a profit. Year 4, I had 2 more properties. Then 5. Then 10. I didn't sleep. I didn't date. I didn't tell anyone my last name. The Vale Group was born in silence. While my family toasted IPOs and cut ribbons on legacy buildings, I was building a different empire. One stay at a time. One perfect detail at a time. Places people remembered, not because they were rich, but because they felt something. Now, they were coming to my doorstep. I walked into the Carradine Grand the day before the gala. Staff nodded as I passed. Good afternoon, Ms. Vale. Fresh orchids lined the marble concierge desk. The scent? Curated personally by me. I stood in the center of the atrium and whispered, let's give them a night they'll never forget. That evening, I called my operations director, June. I want to handle the gala logistics personally, I said. June hesitated. You sure? That crowd, they sound brutal. I know them better than anyone. She exhaled. Then you know this is gonna burn. I paused. I'm counting on it. The next morning, Serena's smug voice floated from the ballroom as she barked instructions to my staff, my team, as if she owned the place. Make sure the champagne is chilled exactly to 45 degrees. And the lighting? Dim but flattering. Not that your average hotel would know the difference. My blood simmered. My manager texted. Guest list reviewed. Press confirmed. Screen set to flip at 7 p.m. sharp. Good. They wanted perfection. I'd give them something better. A reckoning. At 6:59 p.m., I stood behind the ballroom's mirrored partition, watching them laugh and pose under chandeliers I commissioned. They clinked glasses and dropped names. Oblivious. Pompous. Everything I remembered. They'd forgotten me, but tonight, they'd remember. The clock hit 7:00. The lights dimmed. The screens flickered, and my voice, steady, familiar, undeniable, cut through the ballroom like a blade. Good evening. I hope you're enjoying your stay at the Carradine Grand. Before we begin tonight's festivities, allow me to introduce myself. There was a crackle in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. Every face in the ballroom turned. Some squinted, confused. Others whispered like they'd seen a ghost. And there I stood, under the glow of the stage lights, wearing the same name they'd all buried a decade ago. I'm Aria Vale, founder and CEO of Vale Hospitality Group. The screen behind me lit up. A montage rolled property after property. Glass towers in Dubai. Cliffside retreats in Amalfi. Forest lodges in Kyoto. The Carradine, gleaming like a crown jewel. I saw Serena's eyes widen, her hand tightening around her champagne flute. I saw my father freeze mid-sip, like the glass had turned to ice in his fingers. And I saw it, that flicker, recognition, then dread, then shame. I didn't need applause. I didn't want it. I just wanted them to feel it, everything they thought I'd never become, unfolding right in front of them. But the high didn't last. That night, after the speech, I locked myself in my suite and stared at the mirror until my face blurred. Why didn't I feel triumphant? Why did I feel like I'd just opened a wound? The past had teeth. Sharp ones. And now it was gnawing, because behind every success story is the part no one wants to hear. The nights you scream into your pillow because you can't afford payroll. The months you go without eating just to keep the lights on. The relationships that die because you've given everything to something that hasn't paid you back yet. They saw a powerful woman in heels and silk. They didn't see the girl who once sobbed on a motel floor when the pipes burst at 3 a.m., ruining everything she'd built. They didn't see the betrayal that started it all. It was my mother. That's the part I buried. She was the one who convinced the family to cut me off. I remember the night like a fever dream. I'd come home for Christmas excited. Hopeful. I brought a handmade photo book of the motel's first anniversary. I thought, maybe she'd be proud. She looked at it once and said, "You really need to stop embarrassing yourself." Embarrassing? Herself. That night, she told my father I wasn't welcome anymore. She didn't cry. Didn't raise her voice. She just erased me. I left that house carrying a bag of clothes and a heart full of splinters. For the next few days after the gala, the family lingered at the Carradine. They acted polite, overcompensating. Awkward small talk. Thin smiles. Apologies without substance. Except for my father. He didn't say a word. Didn't even look at me, until the last night. He knocked on my office door after hours. The hallway was empty. The staff had gone home. It was just us. "You did all this," he said quietly, looking around the space. I nodded. He hesitated. "Why didn't you tell us?" I stared at him. "You didn't want to know." His jaw clenched. "You don't think I'm proud of you?" "No," I said. "And I stopped needing you to be a long time ago." I expected him to fire back. To yell. But instead, he looked old, like a man who finally realized the empire he worshipped had left a hole in his family the size of a daughter. He laughed without another word. I should have felt peace, but peace isn't what came next. What came next was the letter. June dropped it on my desk with a look I hadn't seen before. "This came through legal," she said. "You need to see it." It was from a boutique management firm in Manhattan, owned by Serena Hawthorne. Apparently, she'd filed a motion disputing the name rights of Vale Hospitality, claiming it too closely mirrored Hawthorne Vale Holdings, a property fund run by her father. They were trying to choke me out. Legally, publicly, after everything. They were trying to erase me again. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry. I went to the rooftop, barefoot in my robe, and stared out at the city that used to intimidate me. And I made a choice. I wasn't going to defend what I built. I was going to expand it. Crush them with scale. If they wanted war, I'd bring an army. Mine would be made of blueprints, press releases, and silent acquisitions. And I knew exactly where to start. The enemy wasn't just my family. It was the board of Hawthorne Vale Holdings. The same men who'd laughed when I pitched sustainable luxury back in college. The same ones who told my father, "She's too soft for real business." So I started watching. Quietly. I bought stock. Attended meetings anonymously through shell companies. I learned their weaknesses: outdated models, bloated spending, a string of legal gray areas. They were ripe. Serena had no idea she'd poked a tiger that used to beg for scraps. 2 weeks later, I met a man who would change the game, Elias Quinn. Former Hawthorne exec turned whistleblower. I found him at a charity dinner I co-sponsored. He was sharp, disillusioned, and most importantly, angry. I know where the bodies are buried, he told me over bourbon. Good, I said. Because I brought a shovel. We shook hands that night. An alliance forged not in trust, but in mutual vendetta. By the end of the month, I had everything I needed. Blueprints for destruction. A rebranding campaign. A legal counterstrike. And one hell of a secret weapon, because buried in Elias's files was something no one had ever dared show the public. A fraud. A scandal. A smoking gun tied directly to Serena's father. I stood in the boardroom of my New York penthouse. Lights dimmed, skyline burning behind me. My team sat around the table silent, waiting. I pulled up the file, typed one word into the subject line, reckoning, and hit send. The thing about revenge, it doesn't come with confetti. It comes with silence. The kind that wraps around your ribs and squeezes. It was a Tuesday morning when the email went out. The file, labeled Reckoning, hit inboxes at 7:02 a.m. My phone rang. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:28, it rang again. Serena. I answered that one. What the hell did you do? Her voice cracked at the edges like glass under pressure. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to sit in that panic. Then I said, calm and measured, I told the truth. The truth was simple, brutal, and documented. Serena's father, Arthur Hawthorne, had been quietly rerouting investor funds through offshore shell companies under a green initiative that never existed. Elias had the receipts, emails, memos. A fake nonprofit registration in the Cayman Islands. It was enough to make headlines. And jail time. I didn't leak it to the press. Not yet. I sent it to Hawthorne Vale's board of directors, under strict NDA, with a single condition: remove Arthur Hawthorne as chairman. Or I go public. The silence that followed, delicious. I watched it all unfold from my suite at the Vale region in New York, floor-to-ceiling windows, a skyline so sharp it could cut you. My assistant, Chloe, stepped in with her tablet. Board called an emergency session. Arthur's been suspended pending internal review. Serena's firm just went offline. I nodded. Keep pressure on. No leaks. Yet. Chloe paused. There's more, she said. He's not taking it well. I looked up, meaning. He told reporters it's a smear campaign by a disgruntled ex-employee. I smiled. Perfect. Let him lie. I've got truth. And timing. The next part? That took finesse. I hosted a private gala, press-free, invite-only, for industry elites and legacy investors. The kind of people who built empires. The guest list was curated like a scalpel. And I made sure Serena was on it. So was Arthur. When they arrived at the Midtown venue, a minimalist glass box I designed to reflect the people inside, I was already center stage, not speaking. Just present. Unavoidable. Arthur tried to act unfazed. He smiled too hard. Shook hands like he still had power. Serena? She didn't look at me once. But I felt her watching. As the evening stretched on, whispers floated like perfume. Did you hear about the audit? Someone said it was the daughter. She owns what now? I sipped my wine and waited for the moment. And when it came fast. The head of Global Bank Holdings, a tall woman in navy, walked straight to Arthur, drink in hand. I trust your family's interests are aligned with ESG protocols now, she said. Smiling tightly, Arthur blinked. I beg your pardon? She tilted her head. I just mean, with all the adjustments happening, we'd hate to misalign our capital. Arthur's face paled. I met his eyes from across the room, lifted my glass, and smiled. The next day the story broke, not from me. Someone on the board leaked it, desperate to save face. Headlines roared across finance blogs and tech networks. Hawthorne legacy crumbles under corruption allegations, green fund or green fraud? Disgraced chairman under review, daughter's firm implicated. Serena tried damage control. She went on a podcast. All teary-eyed humility and vague apologies. This isn't who we are. But the truth, it was who they were. Always had been. You think that would have been enough. But here's the thing, revenge isn't always clean. It bleeds, and sometimes it bleeds into the people you didn't mean to hurt. It was Camille, my younger sister. The only one who ever stayed in touch. She showed up at my apartment unannounced. Hoodie, no makeup, tears streaking her cheeks. You leaked the story, she said. I didn't deny it. You ruined Dad. He ruined himself. She looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. You said you didn't want revenge. You said you just wanted to be seen. I swallowed hard. I did. But when someone burns down your house, you don't rebuild. You torch theirs before they strike again. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, so what are you now? Aria Vale? Or just another Hawthorne with a better mask? That hit deeper than I expected. That night, I lay awake and I stared at the ceiling of the penthouse I once dreamed about. 20-foot walls, imported stone, heated floors. And I felt cold. Because Camille wasn't wrong. The line between vengeance and transformation? I'd blurred it. Maybe even crossed it. Was I rebuilding a legacy? Or just burning theirs down brick by brick? The next morning I got a call from Elias. His voice was tight. We have a problem. What kind? Arthur just moved 10 million into a pack. He's funding a smear campaign. Name brand, even your childhood. I clenched the phone. He wasn't done. Not yet. I flew to DC that afternoon. Quietly. Met with a lawyer. Then a journalist. Then an old friend who owed me a favor in Silicon Valley. If Arthur wanted war, he'd get one. But this time, I wouldn't just play defense. I'd go nuclear. And yet, there was still a choice. Camille's words echoed. What are you now? That night, I sat on a park bench 2 blocks from the Capitol. Cold wind, hot coffee, city buzz, heart racing, and I asked myself, do I finish this? Do I cross the point of no return? Because once I did, there'd be no softness left. Only flame. There's a point in every revenge story where the hero becomes something else. Not the villain, but the architect of consequence, and the line between justice and destruction. It blurs the moment you stop caring which one you're delivering. I crossed that line on a gray morning in DC, wearing a suit tailored to power and heels sharp enough to puncture reputations. I walked into that federal office like I had nothing to lose. Because in a way I didn't. They already took everything I'd ever wanted from them: love, belonging, a name that meant something. Now I was just giving it back. In pieces. The SEC investigator was polite, cautious. I slid the drive across the table like it was just another transaction. Inside, the complete paper trail of Arthur Hawthorne's green energy scam, plus the shell companies he used to launder campaign contributions, falsify tax deductions, and create fraudulent charities to funnel money back into family ventures. You understand what happens once we open this, the agent said, one brow raised. I did. The walls would come down. Not just around Arthur, but around Serena. Around the entire illusion of Hawthorne's superiority. I nodded once. Open it. 2 weeks later, the subpoenas went out. The headlines got bloodier. Arthur's face was everywhere, grim, graying, dragged under every headline like a cautionary tale. Serena's boutique firm filed for bankruptcy. Investors fled like rats from fire. And Camille? She didn't call. Not once. I told myself it was all worth it. That I hadn't gone too far. But the truth? I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror anymore. The one who stared back at me wore war paint made of foundation and silent fury. She blinked slow, barely breathed, moved through life like a weapon waiting for permission to strike. And the most dangerous part? She liked it. That's when the past came knocking. Literally. A letter. Hand-delivered. Unmarked envelope. Inside, one sentence in Arthur's unmistakable handwriting. You want it all? Then take the last thing left to take. I should have shredded it. But I didn't. Because I knew exactly what he meant. The Hawthorne Trust. The trust was everything. Generational wealth, legacy, political connections. It had never been touched. Not even by Serena. Because access required the unanimous approval of the remaining board. 3 signatures. One of them mine. I'd inherited my share the day my grandfather died. He'd left it to me in secret. The dark horse. He called me. It was the one piece of the puzzle no one knew I had. If I signed that paper, I wouldn't just end the Hawthorne empire. I'd become it. I sat in my penthouse, pen hovering over the contract. The silence was suffocating. Everything I'd built, earned, fought for. It had been to prove I didn't need them. But now I was standing at the door of becoming what I hated. And for the first time in years, I hesitated. That's when Camille walked in. I don't know how she got past security. But there she was. Jeans, no makeup, eyes like a storm. She didn't speak. Just looked at me. At the papers. Then she said, "Do you even remember who you were before all this?" I looked down. "I remember being humiliated." "I remember you," she said softly. "You used to draw dream hotels on napkins. You used to believe in magic. And now I build it." I snapped. She didn't flinch. "No. Now you build prisons with prettier lobbies." The words landed like a blade. She walked to the window, looking out at the glowing city below. "Burning them down doesn't make you whole," she whispered. "It just makes you warm for a little while." After she left, I stayed in that chair all night, pen in hand, moonlight flooding the room like truth, and I realized, she was right, they had taken everything from me. But I'd let revenge take the rest. So I did something no one saw coming. I walked into Hawthorne Vale headquarters the next morning, papers in hand. Arthur and Serena were there. Tense. Pale. Expecting war. I laid the documents on the glass table. Here's the trust, I said. My vote. My terms. Arthur leaned forward like a predator sensing bait. What's your price? I looked him dead in the eye. I don't want the trust. I want to dismantle it. Silence. Serena blinked. What? I repeated myself, slower. I want it all dissolved. Assets liquidated. Profits rerouted into a scholarship fund for entrepreneurs without legacy. Arthur's face went bloodless. You'd throw away 100 years of empire. No, I said. I'd free it. He lunged, grabbing the papers. I'll bury you for this, he spat. I already dug the grave, I whispered. Then I turned to Serena. You can fight it. Or you can help rebuild something better. Something with your name on it if you finally earn it. She stared at me. Then, to my shock, she nodded. Tiny. But real, maybe the first honest thing she'd ever done. That afternoon, I submitted the paperwork. The trust would be deconstructed over 2 years. I refused the board seat. Refused the payout. Instead, I redirected my entire share, millions, into the Vale Initiative. A fund for women like me. The black sheep. The ones who get laughed at for dreaming in color when the world only sees grayscale. That night, I stood alone on the rooftop of the Carradine Grand. The same place it all began. The wind was sharp. The lights endless. My empire was intact. But more than that. So was I. Not as a Hawthorne. Not as a Vale. As Aria. Just Aria. Then my phone buzzed. A press request. They wanted a quote on the trust's dissolution. I typed slowly. Sometimes you have to burn the blueprint to build something real. And hit send. The day the Hawthorne Trust officially dissolved, it didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like silence. Not the empty kind, the earned kind. The kind you get when the storm finally ends and the world holds its breath. Unsure what comes next. I sat in a glass-walled boardroom, no family in sight, flanked by attorneys and journalists and a stunned financial world that couldn't understand why someone would walk away from $500 million. Why do this? One of them asked. Recording. Device hovering inches from my face. I looked out the window. A child walked with her mother, sticky fingers pressed against the pastry shop glass across the street. Wonder in her eyes. Like anything was possible. Then I said, because some things are worth more than money, like never having to ask permission to matter. Arthur vanished into legal purgatory, court dates, asset seizures, reputational ruin. Serena tried to pivot. She posted a video about reinvention, transparency, moving forward. The comments section wasn't kind. Camille went quiet for a while. Then one day, she sent a single text. You did it. Proud of you. I stared at that message for 5 full minutes. Not because of the words. Because she meant them. 2 months later, I stood in front of the very first property I ever bought. The Pines Motel. It still smelled like pine cleaner and chip paint. But I kept it. Never renovated. Never sold. It was sacred. The place where I once cleaned toilets with trembling hands. Where I slept in the supply room between guests. Where I learned to survive. I unlocked the rusted door, walked inside, and just stood there, alone. Quiet. It felt like coming home, not to a place. To a version of me I hadn't seen in years. I sat on the floor. Dusty. Faded. Perfect. And I cried, not because I was sad, but because the girl who started here, she never needed to become a weapon. She was already enough. That night, I flew to Tokyo. I had a meeting with architects for the newest Vale project, a hybrid wellness retreat that would integrate traditional Japanese design with AI-enhanced eco-tech. It would be the most advanced hotel in the world. And I wasn't just building it. I was funding it with profits from the dismantled Hawthorne empire, poetic justice engineered by hand. The press wouldn't stop calling. Forbes wanted a feature, from disgrace to disruptor. How Aria Vale broke the family that broke her. Vogue requested a shoot. One morning show host said she cried watching my keynote. I declined most interviews, except one. The story behind podcast. They gave me full creative control. 1 hour. 1 mic. Just me and my voice. I told it all, the betrayal. The motel. The burns. The empire. But when the host asked what I'd say to my younger self if she were sitting across from me, I didn't hesitate. You were never the problem. You were the blueprint. That episode went viral, not because of scandal, because of truth. Women wrote to me from across the world. My family made me feel worthless. I started my bakery last week. They told me I couldn't run a business. I opened my 4th salon. You made me believe again. And that was the revenge no one saw coming. I hadn't just destroyed a dynasty. I'd sparked a movement. And then came the invitation. Cream card stock. Gold lettering. Embossed with the new family crest. The first annual Vale Legacy Gala. Theme, where you start doesn't define where you're going. My team picked the venue, the Carradine Grand of course. Full circle. On the night of the gala, I walked into the ballroom alone. In no entourage. No fanfare, just me. The room was filled with underdogs. Founders. Creators. Women who crawled out of places like I once had, barely breathing, barely believed in. Now they wore gowns. Now they signed checks. Now they own things. The music faded. I stepped on stage, took a breath, and spoke. I was born a Hawthorne, but I built the name that matters. I raised a glass to every one of you who's ever been told you're too small, too poor, too emotional, too unqualified. This is your empire now, brick by brick. They can't stop what they didn't see coming. They stood, applauded, but I didn't cry. I smiled. Later that night, as I stood at the edge of the rooftop garden overlooking the glowing city, someone approached from behind. A voice I hadn't heard in over a year. You were right. I turned. Arthur. Older. Smaller. Not the man who once ruled rooms. Just a man who lost everything trying to control the one person he couldn't. I said nothing. He looked down. You didn't need to destroy me. No, I said softly. But you made damn sure I had the tools. He nodded. You won. I met his eyes. I didn't come here to win. I came here to exist. He didn't reply, just walked away into the dark. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. Now I keep a framed napkin in my office. A doodle I drew at age 16, dream hotel, glass rooftop, garden balcony. We built that one last year in Chile. It's real now, just like I always was. Final words. Don't chase revenge. Build legacy. Let them walk into your world without knowing you built it. And when they finally see you, don't say a word. Just smile.